I recently sent out the following tweet. Innovation is not about searching for the idea, but about creating something after you find it. So why did I bother to send out this tweet? It seems that some people believe that being an innovator means coming up with the ideas. Coming up with the ideas is the easy part. Translating ideas and innovations is the really, really hard part. You just can't stop at the idea. You need to stick with it and see the idea through to innovation. I'll be right back.
This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and one of my fondest memories, and maybe not one of my fondest memories, is my dad's annual Thanksgiving projects. Now, let me give you a little bit of background, particularly for those of you who don't live here in the States. Thanksgiving occurs in November, and it's a 4-day holiday weekend. Now, for most families, it's a time where family comes together, you have a big meal on Thursday, and basically you lay around on the couch for the rest of the weekend. But not at my family. My dad had this annual ritual where he wanted to do some major modification to the house, with the anticipation that that modification or that improvement would be in place so that he could show it off to friends and family at Christmas. The problem is my dad started all these projects for these Thanksgiving programs or these house modifications, but most of them never got completed. Years later, you could walk around the house and you could still see those partial projects still hanging around. Now, my parents have long sold that house, and I wonder if those partial projects are still hanging around. But it was one of those frustrations as a kid. You would start the project, but you never got to see the project completed. Now, why is this so important today? I'm seeing this happening more and more in the business world. People get things started, but they never see them to completion. They never take the personal responsibility to see them through. Why? There's a whole category of employees we have that believe PowerPoint is the final deliverable. PowerPoint does not equal success. Yes, we can put together pretty slides, we can get executives all excited about this new idea for this new product, but that's not the end. That is even barely the beginning of the idea. The hard part is now driving that execution. Now, I should know, being an idea person is the fun part, right? You sit around, you blue sky the ideas, you come up with some sketches, you put together some concepts, some models, non-functioning items. You put it in front of a bunch of executives, they get all excited, and wow, you think your job is done. But you're not done. Translating ideas into real impact is the hard part. Because the reality is what you've come up with, the vision, is never going to align exactly with what gets delivered in the final deliverables. And the hard part is sticking with it until it's done. Why is it hard to stick with it? One is personality types. Idea people tend to be kind of, fluttering in, fluttering out. They're dropping their pearls of wisdom. And then you kind of have execution people who kind of take those ideas and turn them into cranks. But I'm going to argue here that if you're a true innovator, you need to be able to go from that idea and the excitement and the buzz you get from creating that idea and translating that all the way through until you deliver that product and put it out on the shelf. And when I talk about products, as you know, as a regular listener to this podcast, I'm not talking about just hard, tangible products. I'm talking about services, processes, business models, whatever it is that you're going to innovate. It's not about just coming up with the idea and then passing it off. If you're a true innovator, you need to have that ability to not only generate the idea, but see that idea all the way through to the very end. Well, let me give you one example of somebody that's on my team. So this is a person, had a vision, had a great idea, was able to quantify it, describe it, lay out what he thought the plan for the execution was. Now, I could have let them stop there because I said, great, let's take those slides. We're going to give it to a team. They're going to go execute your idea. But no. I told this person that I was committed to stick with the project if they would stick with it. It wasn't about them coming up with the idea and then passing it off to somebody else. If you're truly going to be that innovation champion, that person who's going to provide the innovation leadership on a program, not only do you need to do the idea, but you're going to need to do the execution. Now, for many, that's scary. Do you have the support? How long is this going to take? Whatever the fear factor is. But for this person, I told them I would stand behind you. As long as you're staying on this project, I am behind you. And we're going to see this through. We're going to stick with it. Now, the plan for this project called for it to be done in 12 to 18 months. In reality, the project took 3 years. 2 times the original plan. Now, the project changed direction multiple times. It started off as one aimed at this customer segment. It morphed into another customer segment. It morphed with more features and functions. It morphed in scale and size and all the different dimensions you can think of. But this person stuck with it. Now, what's been the end result? The result is that the project has far exceeded the plan. It's a true success story. Now, recently, I was sitting down with this person. They shared with me that how they'd way underestimated how hard it was to what they said, do it, rather than just think it. Now, for this person, now that they've gone through the entire process, I mean literally the entire process, owning every little bit of detail, the next time they're working in teams and the next time they're coming with the ideas, they know how hard it is to stick to it. Now, truly successful innovators get their hands dirty. It's not about sitting on the sidelines. It's not about coming up with the idea and then passing it off and then sitting there and criticizing somebody else because they're not executing your vision. If it's your vision, roll up your sleeves, jump in, and stick to it. Idea people are not innovators. If you are just sitting around thinking that you're an idea person, you're not an innovator. And I'm guessing that if you're a listener to this podcast, you're not just an idea person. You've already taken the initiative to download these podcasts, to listen to them, take notes, try to implement them within your organization. So you are innovators. The challenge is that in many cases we get frustrated. It takes a lot of dedication and a lot of focus to get it done. It's frustrating. You know, organizations aren't always willing to support you. You aren't getting all the budget dollars you need. People are putting, schedule pressures on you. The sales team is telling you it's too expensive. The marketing team is not getting the messaging right. The manufacturing team can't get the product built right. You can come up with 10,000 reasons why you should just stop the project and not see it through. Because it's hard. It's all about having the right attitude and understanding that you're going to get frustrated, that you're going to have these issues. So, what are the 3 rules that I've come up with for sticking with it, for seeing a project all the way through to the very end? 1 is manage your personal expectations. Early on in the project, you need to temper your enthusiasm. You get excited, you get enthusiastic, you're waving arms, you can't wait to talk about this project, but you need to temper that enthusiasm. You need to set realistic expectations for the time and effort involved. Personal expectation and managing those personal expectations is important. Just as you would normally do in any kind of a project where you would manage expectations for senior management so that they wouldn't pressure you into an unrealistic schedule or an unrealistic budget. Or you maybe crank down a little bit on their expectations so that when you deliver, you exceed those expectations and therefore you warrant kind of the praise and adulations that you get. So number 1, rule 1 for sticking with it is you need to manage your personal expectations just as vigorously as you manage those senior management expectations that you set. The second rule is find a mentor. Find somebody who can help you check your ups and downs. In any given project, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. So you need to find a mentor who you can vent with and you can celebrate with. Now, the purpose of this mentor is not someone to advise you on what to do and what not to do. This is more of an attitude mentor. Somebody who will kind of maybe crank down on the ups and raise the downs to kind of level you off. Otherwise, you're internalizing all of this as you're going through the project. So you need somebody that you can vent to, you can explode on, somebody who can just sit there and be a sympathetic ear. But again, somebody who can kind of maybe crank down when you're up, pick you up off the floor, and help you avoid making that decision of throwing in the towel. Making sure that you're sticking with it as far as you realistically can go to deliver that initial idea, to turn that idea into a true innovation. So again, rule number 2 is find a mentor who can help you level out those ups and downs. Rule 3, sit down at the beginning of the project and describe to yourself what it will feel like when you get the project done. Not the fact that you've actually delivered and the end result of a product, but what's that personal feeling that you're trying to describe to yourself when you cross the goal line? Is it just that self-satisfaction? Is it the proving to yourself that you can, work through all of the corporate antibodies and get this thing actually done? Is it the adulation of coworkers? Is it the press response to this product or idea that you translated? Describe that, because that's what you need to hold on to. That's the goal at the end that you need to be striving to from the standpoint of finishing this deliverable or this project or translating this idea into an innovation. Don't fall into the crutch of saying, well, my satisfaction comes from just delivering this innovation. You need to create something, a personal motivator. What is it that you get out of this project? Describe it in enough detail to where it really has that emotional hook. Something that you really desire, that satisfaction, the press adulation, whatever it is. Sit down and describe it. Now, why am I going through this? Why is this so important? Because as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I've seen more and more projects, particularly recently with the economic downturn and what we're seeing in the economy, where people start projects and then they're quick to throw the towel in. They're quick not to see it through. Or you've got teams of people within an organization who are idea people. They come up with the ideas, but they don't stick with it, or they don't see it as their job. They're the idea people. They're going to pass it over to the doers. Reality is, if you're an innovator, you need to get your hands dirty. You need to take that idea. You need to be a true innovation champion and take that idea and translate it into the innovation. And if you follow the 3 rules, you'll avoid that kind of personal turmoil you get when you're trying to drive with it, and you'll stick through to that project to the very end. Thank you for listening to the Killer Innovations Podcast. If you have feedback on this podcast or suggestions for future shows, please email them to feedback@philmckinney.com. The full archive of the show, now numbering more than 120, is available at the Apple iTunes Store, the Zune Marketplace, and at philmckinney.com. To help you share the podcast with others, we've collected the most popular shows onto a 2-disc CD set titled Creating Killer Innovations. You can find the CD over at Amazon, or you can order it directly by visiting philmckinney.com. Don't miss out on the opportunity to connect with others interested in innovation and creativity. Participate by commenting on the show notes. There's also Killer Innovations groups on LinkedIn and Facebook. So join in and connect. Links are over at the main page on the site. So why do I spend the time and money to produce the podcast? I was the beneficiary of the time and energy from a mentor early in my career. When I asked how I could pay it back, he told me to pay it forward. This podcast is my way of paying it forward. All I ask of you is to pay it forward by telling others about the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever your choice of social communication is. The content of this podcast is made available under Creative Commons license, non-commercial, non-derivative, with attribution.